Many seek God at the 11th hour, but they die at 10:30. Today, let's talk about no to worldly policy. There were days of peril for the Church of Christ. The faithful standard bearers were few indeed, though the truth was not left without witnesses. Yet at times it seemed that error and superstition would wholly prevail, and true religion would be banished from the earth. The gospel was lost sight of, but the forms of religion were multiplied, and the people were burdened with rigorous exactions. The same spirit of hatred and opposition to the truth has inspired the enemies of God in every age, and the same vigilance and fidelity have been required in His servants. The words of Christ to the first disciples are applicable to His followers to the close of time. What I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. Question: what are Christ's words to His followers at the close of time? Answer: watch. Since the earliest times, the minds of the people were turned away from God to fallible, erring, and cruel men, to the prince of darkness himself, who exercised his power through them. Sin was disguised in a garb of sanctity. When the scriptures are suppressed and man comes to regard himself as supreme, we need look only for fraud, deception, and debasing iniquity. With the elevation of human laws and traditions was manifest the corruption that ever results from setting aside the law of God. Christ's church eventually rejected the truth and greedily accepted deceptions. Question: what happened to Christ's faithful people in the past? Answer: perplexed and burdened. The few faithful builders upon the true foundation were perplexed and hindered as the rubbish of false doctrine obstructed the work. Like the builders upon the wall of Jerusalem in Nehemiah's day, some were ready to say, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build. Wearied with the constant struggle against persecution, fraud, iniquity, and every other obstacle that Satan could devise to hinder their progress, some who had been faithful builders became disheartened. And for the sake of peace and security, for their property and their lives, they turned away from the true foundation. Others, undaunted by the opposition of their enemies, fearlessly declared, "Be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible." And they proceeded with the work, everyone with his sword girded by his side. Today, church leaders sanction and assume their insignia and exercise power of royalty and boast it is their duty to pull down the pride of members. How striking the contrast between the overbearing pride of the haughty men of the world and the meekness and gentleness of Christ, who represents Himself as pleading at the door of the heart for admittance, that He may come in to bring pardon and peace, and taught His disciples, "Whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant." The advancing centuries witness a constant increase of error in the doctrine put forth from the Word. The teachings of heathen philosophers had received attention and exerted an influence in the church. Many who professed conversion still clung to the tenets of their pagan philosophy, and not only continued its study themselves, but urged it upon others as a means of extending their influence among the heathen. In the past centuries, God's law, the standard of righteousness, was removed, and the Holy Scriptures were almost unknown to the people. Thus, a moral and intellectual paralysis had fallen upon Christendom. Question: what did Prophet Hosea proclaim in Hosea 4:6? Answer: my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. Question: what message did Prophet Isaiah receive from the Lord? Answer: cry aloud, spare not, lift up their voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins. Isaiah 58 verse 1. Though they are called the people of God, the house of Jacob, though they profess to be linked with God in obedience and fellowship, they are far from Him. Wonderful privileges and promises have been given to them, but they have betrayed their trust. With no words of flattery must the message be given them. Show my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins. Show them where they are making a mistake. Set their danger before them. Tell them of the sins they are committing, while at the same time they pride themselves on their righteousness. Apparently seeking God, they are forgetting Him, forgetting that He is a God of love and compassion, long-suffering and goodness, dealing justly and loving mercy. Worldly policy has come into their business and religious life. Their hearts are not purified through the truth. God looks on their outward ceremonies of humility as a solemn mockery. Question: what do ministers and people need now? Answer: purification of soul. Ministers and people need the work of purification in their souls, that God's judgment may be turned away from them. God is waiting for humiliation and repentance. He will receive all who will turn unto Him with their whole heart. No to worldly policy, yes to purification of soul through the Holy Scriptures. Thank you and God bless.